Hi, this time I wanted to talk about properly representing video games in a tabletop RPG. You know, those role playing games that are somewhat relatively new, in my opinion. I consider it, like I've said in other videos, like an emergent genre or subgenre perhaps of tabletop role playing games trying to represent the video game experience. I think the key lies in the surreal nature of video games. I would like to start with an example because I did a video yesterday where I talked about how to handle MMORPG or MOBA style of damage templates or area of effect templates in a tabletop RPG environment. It was inspired by a question made by Runwise Gamgee. He also made a reply, so check out my video. His video response is going to be as a pinned comment in that video. But I forgot to mention something, or rather, I didn't get that part of the explanation. And it is that Runwise was interested on actually telegraphing those attacks. For those of you that do not know, you have this sort of like area of effect colored areas, like these templates that appear on screen. So like if the enemy is kind of like going to cause like a storm of fire or meteors or whatever, and you see this like a circular template or perhaps a sort of wave or line, it's of a different color in the stage. It's just there to indicate that something is going to happen within that area. So you need to move out of the way, otherwise you're going to be hurt by that attack. But Runwise wanted to know how to represent that in a realistic way. I actually thought that he meant in a video game sort of style, but in a realistic way, I would actually recommend that you use light to mark those templates. If the enemy is going to use this weird sci-fi gun, and the gun is charging up for this huge blast, like almost like a sci-fi cannon, you could make it so that there is this projection of light, bluish light, whatever, purplish light, orangey light, and this covers certain areas. So now the player characters need to know that they need to get out of the way of those areas. But in the case of some other less showy attacks, because this light thing could be applied to magical effects, the discharges from wands or scepters. But what if you have like a melee based character and you want to sort of have that telegraph move sort of attack or style of attack? In that case, it's not going to be so easy, but you could give out some clues that the opponent suddenly marks a specific arc in front of him, and you know that the attack is going to occur within that arc. Like maybe you have like an evil samurai sort of enemy, and he wields or swings or brandishes his katana in a certain way within a certain arc. In a very suspicious way, he goes like, oh, and then he takes his pose. You're kind of giving clues that something is going to happen in front of that enemy. So it's all about making it believable. It's much easier with magic or technology. You have, like I said, those light effects. Oh, the wizard is summoning something with his scepter, and suddenly you see this bluish light, circular bluish light covering this entire zone or a couple of zones. You know that you probably know that you need to get out of those zones so you won't be affected by that attack. But like I said, when it comes to melee, you need to make some telltale clues or signs that something is going to happen within a certain zone or area or direction. Moving on from that, when it comes to representing video games in tabletop role-playing games, it's all about this surreality and perhaps the ridiculousness of video games. Great examples come in the moves of the Fight tabletop role-playing game. I'm going to put the link to my review in that tabletop RPG that represents the fighting video game. The moves are pretty much inputs that you would do in use when employing a controller or when using an arcade stick and buttons. And you have backdashes, air dashes, and blocking and getting up from when you are taken down by a sweep or some move that knocks your character prone. All of that is represented in the Fight tabletop RPG. So if you want to represent that video game experience, you need to embrace those ridiculous conceptions. In Fight, you have like an energy bar and a special power bar. If you wanted to play like a Mario Bros. Tabletop RPG, have those floating blocks, those blocks that are just there with power-ups inside of them. Maybe when the player moves his character under those blocks, you require a skill check to see if the character jumps with enough force to punch the block, and now a power-up falls down. Something to, perhaps depending on the RPG, to recover your health, or to give you a boost when it comes to your attacks, or maybe they give you an entirely new special ability like the Fire Flower in Mario Bros. Or the Tanuki suit or whatever. Now your character has access to new powers. So when it comes to actually representing a video game in a tabletop RPG environment, embrace that surreality, those surreal elements. Anything that has to do, like I said, with damage templates. If it's a video game type of RPG, let's say in the style of, like I said, MMORPGs or MOBAs, it's plausible to have those color templates. The characters won't question it. They are going to consider it a part of the normal world. Good examples of this can be seen in isekai light novels, anime, and manga, where the characters are in a fantasy environment, but suddenly these menus pop up out of nowhere, or pop out, and they start to organize their inventory. Instead of putting something on their backpacks or on their belts or whatever, they just click at the air, and this screen appears out of nowhere, and now they are organizing their inventory and the items and all of that. So you can have those moments in a tabletop RPG, as long as you don't question it, because it's part of the world, just as certain laws of physics apply to our real life. Although some of them are, you need to look into them. Remember never to trust the dogma and doctrine of academia. You should apply the scientific method to find out the truth about things. Therein lies the secret of free energy. Oh, and this is all science fiction. Okay, so when it comes to tabletop RPGs that represent video games, embrace those ridiculous, otherworldly, nonsensical, surreal moments. In the case of Scott Pilgrim, I love Scott Pilgrim, and there's actually going to be a new animated show. I can't wait to see it. I hope they stay faithful to the source material. These days you never know. But in Scott Pilgrim, when Scott defeats an enemy, pretty much kills an enemy, that enemy turns into coins. Like in River City Ransom. Like you would expect in beat 'em ups, when you defeat enemies, sometimes they drop things, they explode into coins or whatever. Use that in your tabletop RPG if you are trying to represent the video game experience. So it's all about that. Take a look at all of those video game traits or quirks, whatever you want to call them, details, aesthetic choices or flourishes, and apply them to the RPG game world, and consider it as if it is normal within that context. Well, thank you for watching this video. If you have any other comments or questions, especially related to representing video games in tabletop RPGs, please let me know. As always, I am very thankful for your views, for your likes and comments. If you have any other questions or comments related to anything, please let me know as well. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. And remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player. Once again, thank you, and see you later.